Well, hello there, lovely people. It's a delightful day for making cartoons. You read that title correctly. This handy-dandy guide I've whipped up is for anyone and everyone, and the best part, all the tools we'll be using are as free as a bird on a spring morning. Now, I'll be guiding you step by step, sharing my own little tricks and secrets, a sort of peep into the magician's hat, if you will. So let's stop dilly-dallying and jump right into the thick of it. Today, we'll be tangoing with the tools and creating a little started with installing the Unreal Engine. First, open your web browser and head over to the official website. You can find it easily just by writing Unreal Engine. Once you're on the website, you'll see a download button. Go ahead and click on that. You'll be taken to a new page. Now, you'll need to scroll down a bit until you spot the Download Launcher option. Found it? Great. Click on it. After you've clicked, your computer will start downloading the installation file. Once the installation is done, open up the launcher that we've just installed. You should see an option called Unreal Engine. Go ahead and click on that. Next, you'll see a tab called Library. Click on it too. Here, there's a plus button. By clicking it, you can add the specific version of Unreal Engine you want to download. For our purposes, we'll be using Unreal Engine 5.2. Find Unreal Engine 5.2, click it, and it will start downloading. Might take some time, but do not worry, that's normal. Once the download and installation is done, you've successfully installed Unreal Engine. Now, to make things easier for you, I've prepared a ready-to-use project that you can download directly. You'll find the link for it in the description below. Now that you've downloaded the project folder, go ahead and open it. This initial project is designed to make you feel at home with the tools we'll be using. Inside, you'll discover a delightful, colorful little restaurant scene, along with the character we'll be animating today. And here's a little tip before we jump in. The Unreal Marketplace is filled to the brim with free assets you can use to enrich your projects. It's a goldmine for us creators, so make sure to check it out. Now that we're inside the Unreal Engine editor, let me walk you through it a bit. The main tab, where you can see our character and the restaurant, is like our canvas. This is where we'll add our lights, props, and everything else we need for our scene. To navigate this space, it's as simple as holding down the right mouse button and moving around. Don't forget to use the directional buttons on your keyboard to help you move around. Want to limit the vertical rotation for a more stable view? Just hold down the left mouse button instead. If you want to completely lock the rotation, the center mouse button is your friend. Want to go slower or faster? Simply click the camera icon on the right corner and choose to decrease or increase the value. Perfect. Now, let's move on to the next step. Interacting with objects in our scene. If you want to move, scale, or rotate any object, all you have to do is click on the object you want to interact with. Once selected, hitting the spacebar allows you to switch between move, rotate, and scale modes easily. This way, you can easily manipulate the objects to fit your vision. Great job, mate. Now let's focus on some of the most important tabs you'll be using in Unreal Engine. First, we have the Content Browser, this area over here. It holds all the folders for our project, and it's also where we import new animations, props, and so on. Second, there's the Outliners tab. This is like a master list showing everything you have in your scene. From here, you can select objects directly, hide them, and do a lot more. Finally, we have the Details tab. Whenever you select anything in your scene, all its details will appear here for you to check out and modify as needed. These are some of your main controls in the Unreal Engine cockpit. With these at your fingertips, you're all set to command your scene. All right, it's time for the fun part, the sequencer. This is the playground where we bring everything to life and craft our final animated scene. To set up a new sequence, simply move your cursor over this icon and give it a click, then pick Add Level Sequences. Feel free to give it a unique name or stick with the default, then hit Save. And there you have it. A fresh tab springs open, showcasing our shiny new level sequence. Keep in mind, anything we want to animate or move during the recording needs to be in this sequencer, so we can key it in. Adding an object to the sequence is a breeze. Just select the object you want, head over to the Outliners tab, and while holding the left mouse button, Just drag it into the sequences. Here's a crucial tip. In Unreal Engine, make sure you save your work frequently. This way you won't risk losing your progress. I personally like to double-check by saving from the content browser and also using the main save icon right here. Trust me, there's nothing more frustrating than losing your hard work and having to start from scratch. So remember, save early and save often. Alrighty, moving on. Now that we have our character in the scene, you'll notice that you get a drop-down with two sections, animation and transform. These are generated automatically, but if you click these plus buttons, as you can see, you get many more options to play. However, for today, these two sections are the perfect place to start. Let's keep things simple for our first lesson together. I've already created an animation for this character and prepared an audio file for us to use. You can download both directly from the links in the description. Just a heads up though, on sites like these, you might encounter a few ads when you click on download. You know how it is. If you have an ad blocker, great. If not, just do as I do, close the extra tabs when they pop up. No big deal, but I thought it's worth mentioning, so you know what to expect. Now, let's get those files and move on. Now we'll import them into Unreal. There are a bunch of ways to do this, but let's keep it simple. We're just going to drag and drop our files into the content browsers, so make sure you're in the folder where you want these files to be. Now, I'm not the most organized person, so if you're unlike me and you like having things tidy, let's create some specific folders for animations and one for audio files. With our new folders in place, let's bring in our files. Remember, the audio file has to be in WAV format. Now, let's just drag and drop it into the audio folder, and there you have it, simple and effective. Great, now, let's do the same for our animation file. However, this time when we drag and drop, we'll be greeted with a pop-up asking us to assign a skeleton to this animation. In this project, we only have one skeleton, so it's straightforward. Just select that one. All the other settings are fine as they are by default, so just go ahead and click Import All. There you have it. Our animation file is now successfully imported into Unreal. Easy as pie. Awesome. We're almost there. Now, let's add all these elements to our sequence. Wondering how? It's really easy. For the audio, just grab the file and drag it straight into the sequencer. Now, when it comes to the animation, the process is slightly different. You need to click on the plus icon next to animation, and from there you can select the animation we just imported. Just like that, our elements are part of the sequence. Next up, we'll adjust the length of our sequence. Simply hold your mouse over the timeline here and drag. Then, to set the end point of our sequence, move this red bar to where you want your sequence to finish. Alright, now we've got our animation and audio in sync. Let's say we want to tweak things a bit, like having the character's feet interact with the floor or move the character around. For that, we use this transform section. This is where we learn to keyframe, which is pretty straightforward. We've got location, rotation, and scale here. Let's imagine we want our character to start levitating at some point. To set this up, we first add a keyframe at the start by clicking this plus button next to transform. As you can see, this adds a keyframe to the entire object. But here's a trick. You can simply hit the S key on your keyboard to automatically add a keyframe. Alrighty, to have our character start levitating, what we need to do is move to the point on our timeline where we want this to end. Now, we adjust the position of our character to where we want them to be levitating. Once we're happy with this new position, we simply add another keyframe. What this does is it sets our character to be in this new position at this particular moment in the timeline. As you can see, if you hit the spacebar on your keyboard, our character is now levitating while dancing. However, in our case, we don't want our character to be levitating just yet, so let's go ahead and delete those keyframes. Now, let's find the correct position for our character. By hitting the spacebar and playing the sequence, we can fine-tune the character's position. For example, we might want to adjust their height to get them exactly where we want them to be. Great progress so far. Now, to capture all this action, we need something essential, a camera. I have a favorite method to add a camera. I move to approximately where I want my camera to be positioned, then I click on this burger menu item at the top left, select Create Camera here, and choose Cinema Camera Actor. And, just like that, if you move away, you can see you've added a camera to your scene. And you can now add this camera to the sequencer like we did before by going into the outliner and drag it from there into the sequencer. Now, you're seeing things from the camera's perspective. If you want to change that, just click the Perspective button and select Default, Cinematic, or choose another camera, etc. With the camera selected, you can make changes in the Details panel. You could adjust lens settings, aspect ratios, and more. In this case, we're happy with the default settings. Let's go back to the sequencer and breathe life into this camera by keyframing it, just like we did with the character. At this stage, I prefer switching to the Game view for a more immersive perspective. To toggle this, simply click up here and turn it on or off as needed. Next, let's head to the start of our timeline. We'll want to set keyframes for the camera's position as well as for its focal length and aperture. As we move along the timeline, we'll add more keyframes, changing the camera's position and adjusting the focal length, etc. Take your time here to create the camera movement that fits your vision. Once you're satisfied with the results, it's time to keyframe the camera's focus. To make this process simpler, select the camera and in the Details panel, turn on Draw Debug Focus Plane. This gives you a visual representation of the camera's focus. You can then adjust this focus throughout your timeline to ensure the character is always in sharp detail. When you're done, remember to turn off the Draw Debug Focus Plane. And with that, we've created our first animation and it's ready to be rendered. Excellent. To do that, we're going to use the Movie Render queue. Start by clicking these three dots and make sure Movie Render queue is selected. Then click on this icon which will open up a new tape. Here, you'll see your sequence all ready to be rendered. Next, click on Unsaved Configs to open up your render settings. This is where you choose your export format, resolution, anti-aliasing, path tracing, and a bunch of other amazing features. But do not worry, I've set up a basic render preset in the project that you can access by clicking on Unsaved Presets, select Basic Render Presets, select Basic Render Preset, and confirm with Yes. Now you have a basic preset with anti-aliasing and 7 console variables that Unreal recommends for improving overall render quality. Next, click on Outputs, where you can specify the location where you want to save your sequence and the desired resolution. As I mentioned at the start, Unreal is for everyone. You don't need a super expensive PC or anything like that. In fact, I'm just using a laptop. However, depending on your hardware, you'll need to choose your render resolution carefully. While I personally have no problem rendering in 4K, if you do encounter issues, turning down the resolution to 1080 can often solve the problem. Well, my dear viewer, with everything all squared away, your resolution pixel perfect and your output folder of choice selected, you are on the very precipice of rendering. Give that cheeky accept button a little click, followed swiftly by render local. Now prepare to be dazzled by a somewhat underwhelming, low-quality preview of your glorious final render. But fret not. This is your golden opportunity to spy any undesirable elements or any blunders that might have slipped through. No need to twiddle your thumbs, waiting for the render to finish to notice them. It's as simple as a walk in the park. Well, my dear friend, it's time to bid farewell to our trusty Unreal Engine for now and venture to the folder where we stashed our precious render. You might be a touch surprised to discover a flurry of images. But never fear, for your friendly neighborhood Timon is here with a solution, a video editor. I'm rather partial to DaVinci Resolve from Blackmagic. Not only is it completely free, but it's also quite fantastic, loaded with all the professional editing tools you could possibly need, and it's as easy to handle as a nice cup of tea on a Sunday afternoon. So let's get to it. Hop over to Google, type DaVinci Download, and click on the official website. Scroll just a wee bit, and on the left you'll spot a download button. Choose your operating system, download, install, and you're all set. Now let's crack open DaVinci Resolve, shall we? Well, we've made it. Here we are, inside the splendid world of DaVinci Resolve. Let's crack on by creating a new project. We do this by bravely clicking on the Create button, giving our project a suitable name, and clicking Create once more. Just like that, we have a brand new, squeaky clean project ready to go. It's important to note, as you gaze in awe at the multitude of tabs, we're only going to be bothering with a select few today. We'll be dabbling with the Timeline tab. which, if you squint a bit, is just over here, the color grading tab. More fun than it sounds, I promise, and last but certainly not least, the rendering tab. Over in the rendering tab, we'll name our soon-to-be masterpiece, choose our final export format, resolution, and a few other bits and bobs. Just imagine it like picking a suit for a night out, except it's for your animation, and well, it's nothing like picking a suit for a night out. Onwards. Right, first things first. We're going to need to import those glorious frames of ours. And how, pray tell, do we do that? Simple, we select the Timeline tab, and then we do something so beautifully elegant in its simplicity, it brings a tear to my eye. We just drag and drop the entire folder into DaVinci. Doing so should reveal our files lined up and raring to go. However, if you're still staring at a confusing mess of individual images, don't panic, we have a solution. Hop on over to the Media tab, give these 3 little dots a click, hover over Frame Display Mode, and select Sequences. Aha, magic. Now, let's return to our trusty timeline, drag and drop the video onto it, and voila. And we don't want our video to be a silent movie, so let's do the same for the audio. Drop it into DaVinci and then onto the timeline. Now, hold your horses. If the length of your video doesn't quite match up with your audio, it's likely due to our project's frame rate being a little off-kilter. But fear not, dear viewer. Again, we have a simple solution. First things first, clear out your timeline by removing everything from it. Go ahead and delete the timeline from here as well. Once that's done, towards the bottom of your screen, you'll find the project settings. Click on it. Here we'll need to make a small adjustment. Head on over and select 30 frames per second. Why 30, you ask? Well, that's the frame rate we used to render in Unreal Engine. Once that's taken care of, all that's left to do is drag everything back into the timeline. And there you have it, a beautifully synchronized animation ready for rendering. Well, we're almost there, ladies and gentlemen. Just one last step before we can proudly call our creation finished. Let's nip over to the color grading tab. It's as easy as adjusting this curve right here. Just a minor tweak, nothing too fancy. I also have a bit of a soft spot for a slight bloom effect in my videos. Adds a bit of a glow, you see. And while we're here, why not throw in a simple vignette effect? You can control its strength by adjusting the opacity over here. Now with all that done, we are primed and ready to render. To do so, head over to the render tape, give your file a name here, pick out a cozy folder for it to live in, and select the format. I find that EMP4 suits my needs just fine. Next, input your desired resolution and then hit Add to Render Queue. After that, all you've got to do is hit Render All. And by Jove, we've done it. We've officially crafted our first animation. Stand up, give yourself a hearty pat on the back and take a bow. A round of applause for you, my friend, because you, yes you, have made it happen. And remember, this is just the beginning. You are now equipped to create so much more. In our next episode, we'll be creating our own animation from scratch. I'll guide you through using online tools as well as artificial intelligence tools to give things a natural look and feel while keeping it all simple and straightforward. One last nugget of wisdom before we part ways. You might be pondering, this doesn't quite look like the cartoony goodness you teased at the start, old bean. Fret not, for I have a solution, one I've crafted in a pocket-sized tutorial I fondly call From Zero to Hero 1.5. In this wee gem, I reveal the secrets of creating a Photoshop action, and dare I say it, a Photoshop app right on your desktop, all to automate editing a gazillion pictures at once. A rather handy trick, not just for budding animators, but a handy lifesaver in other realms too. This separate tutorial is a golden ticket to a new skill set, and it's as nifty as they come. Oh, and the cherry on top, it's a mere 5 minutes long, so to give it a whirl, you might just add another feather to your cap. And remember, chaps, if today's jolly good journey through the whimsical world of animation left you positively brimming with mirth, why not support this humble channel of ours? Go on, give that inviting subscribe button a hearty click, and don't forget to ring that bell like the town crier at noon. You'll be in the know for all our upcoming escapades, a rather smashing way to stay informed about our cartoon heroes' thrilling adventures. Don't you agree? Until we meet again on this digital crossroads, cheerio.